Welcome back, dear Acolyte. I am pleased to see you again. In the shadow of Tamriel's most ancient legends, where myth and reality blur, there exists a figure of unparalleled enigma and terror, Miraak, the first self-proclaimed Dragonborn. His name, whispered in fear and awe, evokes images of power untamed, of a destiny twisted by ambition, and of a rebellion against the gods themselves. But who was Miraak truly? Was he a hero destined to rise above all, or a tyrant whose lust for power led to his ultimate downfall? As we unravel his story, we will traverse the sacred halls of the Skaal, journey to the heart of the island of Solstheim, and even step into the perilous realm of Apocrypha, where forbidden knowledge lies waiting in the shadows. We will explore the rise of a man blessed by the dragons, yet cursed by his own hubris, and witness his fall into darkness as he sought to usurp the very powers that had granted him his strength. In this tale, you will uncover the secrets of his ancient rites, the treacherous pact he forged with the Daedric prince Hermaeus Mora, and the legacy of betrayal that still lingers in the minds of those who dare to seek him out. Prepare yourself, for the path ahead is fraught with danger and revelation. The story of Miraak is not just one of power and betrayal, it is a cautionary tale of what it truly means to defy the gods, and the inevitable price of such defiance. Miraak stands as a pivotal figure in the destiny of so many souls to this very day. As the first Dragonborn, Miraak's significance extends beyond mere titles and accolades, embodying a complex legacy woven into the fabric of the Merethic era. In his time, Miraak commanded the island of Solstheim, where he established his dominion as a revered dragon priest. This position marked him as a leader within the dragon cult, a formidable order dedicated to the worship of dragons. His influence was such that the dragons themselves bestowed upon him a mask, an artifact of considerable power that would become emblematic of his role within the cult. The title of First Dragonborn, attributed to Miraak, is a matter of some historical intrigue. The term Dragonborn itself would only come into wider usage long after Miraak's time, following the era of Saint Alessia, who is often recognized as the first recorded Dragonborn. Nonetheless, Miraak's claim as the first Dragonborn was not just a matter of historical pride, it reflected his unique position as the earliest known individual to wield Dragonborn powers. His connection to the dragon cult was multifaceted. The dragon cult, with its esoteric rites and fervent veneration of dragons, formed the backdrop against which Miraak's story unfolded. As a dragon priest, he was not merely a follower, but a significant leader, guiding and shaping the cult's practices. During the Merethic era, Miraak emerged from obscurity to become a formidable figure. Known as the First Servant, Miraak's origins trace back to an age when dragons reigned supreme, and mortals were but mere subjects to their draconic overlords. This era was characterized by a complex interplay of power and divinity, and Miraak's early life was marked by his exceptional rise within this tumultuous environment. Miraak's early years were spent in service to the dragon cult, a group of powerful priests who venerated the dragons as divine beings. As a dragon priest, Miraak was not merely a religious figure, he was a key player in the cult's hierarchy. His role granted him considerable influence and respect among his peers. It was during this period of veneration that Miraak began to display signs of extraordinary prowess. His abilities extended beyond the usual scope of his peers. His early affiliations with the dragons were marked by an exceptional bond that allowed him to harness their power in ways that others could only dream of. However, Miraak's ambition reached beyond mere servitude. He sought knowledge and power that transcended the limitations of his era. The dragon cult wielded formidable powers and adhered to strict rituals centered around their draconic deities. This cult's practices involved offerings and sacrifices designed to appease and harness the power of dragons, who were seen as divine entities. It should be noted that within the hierarchy of power, the dragon priests served as intermediaries between the human and dragon populations in order to maintain peace and security. While not entirely ideal for man, this system worked for a time. Miraak's ascent within the dragon cult was marked by extraordinary prowess and authority. As a dragon priest, he was granted a mask that symbolized his elevated status. This mask was more than a mere ceremonial piece. It was a conduit of immense power. Its ability to enhance Miraak's magical capabilities and bolster his command over the arcane arts was unparalleled. The mask, thus, was not only a symbol of his high rank, but also an instrument through which he channeled his formidable powers. The mask itself bore a resemblance to the tusked dragon priest masks seen elsewhere, but was unique in its design, reflecting Miraak's personal journey and his growing influence within the cult. The intricate design of the mask, featuring tentacle-like protrusions, hinted at Miraak's future connections with forces beyond the mortal realm, a foreboding symbol of his eventual betrayal. During this era, Miraak was instrumental in the dragon cult's endeavors, reinforcing their power and influence over Tamriel's northern reaches. His role was pivotal, not just in the execution of the cult's rituals, but also in expanding their dominion. Miraak's ambition, however, was not confined to the traditional boundaries of the cult. He sought greater power beyond the reach of his overlords. His mastery over the arcane and his rising influence set the stage for his dramatic shift in allegiances. As Miraak's thirst for power grew insatiable, his journey took a treacherous turn. His earlier devotion to the dragon cult began to wane as he sought new sources of strength and influence. The turning point came when he encountered Hermaeus Mora, the Daedric prince of knowledge and memory. Miraak's growing discontent with the dragons drove him to explore forbidden realms of knowledge. He discovered the Black Books, relics imbued with the power of Hermaeus Mora. These tomes offered Miraak not only the means to amplify his own powers, but also the ability to dominate the dragons he once served. Hermaeus Mora, ever the schemer, saw in Miraak a worthy candidate for his dark teachings. The pact Miraak made with Hermaeus Mora was one of mutual benefit, but it was also a profound betrayal. Miraak used the arcane secrets he acquired to forge a new path of domination. With the ability to bend dragons to his will, he turned against his former masters. The dragons, who once revered him as a high priest, became his prey. Miraak's power surged as he consumed the souls of these great beasts. His rebellion was not just a struggle for survival, but a quest to reshape the very order of the world. Miraak's betrayal was marked by an era of chaos, as his former allies, the dragons, sought to quash his insurrection. The once sacred temples dedicated to his worship were razed, their remnants standing as silent witnesses to his fall from grace. The essence of this power lay in the mastery of a unique dragon shout known as Bend Will. This shout allowed Miraak to dominate the minds of dragons, literally bending their wills to serve him. The ability to command such majestic and feared creatures was a significant escalation of Miraak's power. No longer was he merely a servant of the dragon cult. He had become a master of the very beings that had once held dominion over him. Hermaeus Mora's influence also manifested in Miraak's personal abilities. His magical prowess expanded beyond conventional limits, drawing from the chaotic energies of Apocrypha itself. Miraak's spells, infused with the arcane essence of his patron, were more potent and insidious. His staff, capable of conjuring writhing tentacles that inflicted poison and fear, was a clear reflection of the Daedric prince's mark upon him. Miraak's influence extended profoundly through his three most formidable servants, Azidal, Dukan, and Zakrisos. These dragon priests, each with their own distinct powers and domains, played crucial roles in his ambitious rebellion against the dragons. Exidal specialized in the art of fire. His very name conjured the image of roaring flames and destructive heat. Dukan's fiery temperament matched his power, and his flame-based abilities were a significant asset to Miraak's rebellion. His role was not just to serve, but to unleash blazing fury upon their foes, embodying the primal rage and destruction that Miraak harnessed in his quest for supremacy. Dukan, a figure shrouded in the very essence of frost, wielded an unparalleled command over ice and snow. His presence was marked by an aura of chill and desolation. As one of Miraak's acolyte priests, Exidal brought his mastery of frost to the fore, using his powers to solidify Miraak's dominance and strike terror into the hearts of their enemies. Zakrisos, the third of the trio, was distinguished by his command over the forces of shock and lightning. His presence crackled with energy, and his lightning-based attacks were a testament to the raw, electrifying power at Miraak's disposal. Zakrisos' role was pivotal in both offense and defense, his lightning-infused abilities adding a volatile and unpredictable element to the group's strategies. Together, these acolyte priests formed the backbone of Miraak's rebellion against the dragons. What's more, in order to provide context for Miraak's journey, it is important to understand the Dragon War and the events which precipitated it. The once reasonable rule of the dragons became oppressive, and man was weathered by hardships too great to bear. In the face of immortal gods, the spirit of the race of men is seemingly ever indomitable. Under Alduin's leadership, the dragons flourished in their oppressive reign. They reveled in their perceived superiority, leveraging their innate mastery of the Thuum, the powerful dragon shouts, to enforce their will. The dragon priests, empowered by fragments of draconic essence, became the enforcers of this tyrannical order. They established a rigid hierarchy, demanding unwavering obedience and substantial tributes from the populace. The once harmonious relationship between dragons and mortals devolved into one of fear and subjugation as the dragon priests tightened their grip on society. The oppressive regime, however, was not sustainable. The relentless cruelty and unyielding dominance of Alduin and his followers bred resentment and despair among the people of Skyrim. It was amidst this bleak landscape that the Dragon War erupted, a desperate and bloody rebellion fueled by the desire for freedom and the hope of overturning draconic tyranny. The initial phases of the war were grim, with mankind standing little chance against the overwhelming might of the dragons. The Thuum's devastating power decimated rebel forces, and many separatist cities fell swiftly under draconic control. Even so, steadfast leaders emerged from the shadows, uniting disparate factions and forging alliances aimed at resisting the draconic despots. Among these emerging figures was Miraak. Unlike other priests who remained steadfast in their loyalty to Alduin, Miraak harbored growing discontent with the draconic rule. He perceived the dragon's tyranny not as divine order, but as a corruption that needed to be challenged. Amidst the cataclysmic struggle of the Dragon War, Miraak had made a crucial decision that would mark his path with both defiance and infamy. Despite his formidable powers and the opportunity to join forces with the Nord heroes Hakon One-Eye, Gormleth Goldenhilt, and Feldir the Old, Miraak chose a different course. Miraak, wielding the power to command dragons, could have aided the Atmorans in their time of need. Instead, he turned away from the call to arms. A lust for power had enveloped his heart, and he had no empathy for those he had once known as kin. At great cost to both sides, the dragons were eventually driven into retreat or extinction as a result of the war. Their once formidable power was broken, and the structure of the dragon cult, which had been a powerful force in Tamriel, was dismantled. Many of the dragons were killed, and those that survived were forced to flee or hide. Miraak's refusal to assist in the fight against Alduin was not merely a strategic choice, but a manifestation of his arrogance. He saw himself as above the conflict, his vision clouded by a belief in his own superiority. His rebellion against the dragons was a personal vendetta rather than a collective effort against a common enemy. Miraak's actions reflected a desire for autonomy and control, rather than the noble cause of defending Tamriel from total annihilation. As the last flickers of the Dragon War's chaos settled, Miraak found himself at the mercy of Varlock, a loyalist dragon priest of great nobility. Despite Varlock's loyalty to the dragons, he, unlike the dragon priests of Skyrim, is venerated as being righteous and honorable above all else. Miraak's insurrection against the dragons, armed with forbidden knowledge from Hermaeus Mora, had led him to a dramatic confrontation with Varlock, the Guardian. This duel was no mere skirmish. It was a cataclysmic struggle that echoed through the very fabric of Solstheim. The battle unfolded with an intensity that reshaped the land itself. Varlock, known as the Jailer, was a master of both physical and magical combat. His command over the elements and his deep understanding of the arcane made him a formidable opponent. Miraak, wielding his potent shouts and the dark energies bestowed upon him by Hermaeus Mora, matched Varlock's prowess with a dangerous blend of audacity and power. The confrontation was both epic and destructive. Their clash caused the very ground to quake and the skies to roar. Legends recount how their battle was so fierce it nearly tore Solstheim from its moorings, separating it from the mainland of Skyrim. The land was reshaped by their conflict, leaving scars that marked the landscape for centuries. Despite Miraak's considerable might and his extensive knowledge of dragon shouts and forbidden magics, he found himself overpowered by Varlock's relentless assault. The duel culminated in a decisive blow as Varlock managed to overcome Miraak's defenses. However, just as victory seemed assured, Hermaeus Mora intervened, snatching Miraak from the brink of death and transporting him to the realm of Apocrypha. Miraak fancied himself the first Dragonborn, but forever onward bore the marks of a pretender. Varlock's triumph over Miraak was profoundly impactful. The dragons, enraged by Miraak's betrayal and his near success, razed his grand temple on Solstheim, obliterating the monuments of his power. The destruction was a symbolic act of retribution, a statement that Miraak's rebellion had been conclusively thwarted. Following the battle, Varlock was entrusted with the solemn duty of guarding Solstheim against any further threats from Miraak. He was bound by oath to remain vigilant, ensuring that the island would not fall into Miraak's hands again. This duty earned him the enduring title of the Jailer, a position steeped in both honor and grave responsibility. His role as the Jailer was not just about maintaining vigilance, but also about grappling with the emotional and moral ramifications of his actions. The destruction wrought by Miraak, once a trusted ally, left an indelible mark on Varlock, a legacy of sorrow that transcended the boundaries of his duty and lingered in the quiet halls of his tomb. Varlock's reflections would likely have been filled with a deep and melancholic contemplation of what had been lost. The camaraderie that once existed between him and Miraak, now shattered by ambition and treachery, was a somber aspect of his duty. He would have dwelled on the irony of his position, guarding against the legacy of one he once stood beside, a constant reminder of the personal cost of his victory. Duty transcended all, and although Varlock prevailed over Miraak, it was not truly a victory, for much had been lost during the Dragon Wars. The dragon cult had been a powerful religious and political force. Their fall from power was a dramatic shift, and their once great prestige was eroded. The loss of the dragon's favor and the subsequent defeat in the Dragon War led to a profound loss of respect for both the cult and its priests. The surviving dragon priests faced severe persecution, The human victors sought to eradicate the remnants of the dragon cult and the priests who had once wielded such power. Many dragon priests were killed and their temples were destroyed. The surviving priests were often forced into hiding or met with grim fates. Their once formidable presence in Tamriel was reduced to a mere shadow of its former self. The dragons, once revered as gods, were relegated to myths and legends. The Dragonborn, who had played a crucial role in the dragon's defeat, became the new heroes of the age. The reverence previously reserved for dragons and their priests was redirected towards the Dragonborn and other emerging powers. One may wonder why Varlock persisted in his duties despite the fall of the dragons, so it is necessary to understand his motivations to truly comprehend his antithesis, Miraak. Varlock could have faded into meaningless obscurity along with the rest of his priesthood, for there were no longer any dragons remaining to serve. However, he persisted in his service to the people of Solstheim. That is the primary difference between Miraak and Varlock. Despite being a priest of immense power and ability, Varlock never forgot his humble human beginnings. If questioned, he would likely never admit his service to being anything more than upholding the will of the dragons, but his actions suggest otherwise. I, however, digress. In the wake of Miraak's defeat and subsequent banishment, Solstheim fell into a period of uneasy peace. The island's inhabitants, grappling with the aftermath of the destruction and the loss of their once mighty temple, began to rebuild amidst the shadows of Miraak's legacy. Meanwhile, Miraak himself languished in the shadowy expanse of Apocrypha, plotting his return and nursing his wounded ambition, awaiting the moment he could once again challenge the realms of Tamriel. In the shadowy recesses of Apocrypha, Miraak began his long exile. His time in this eerie realm was marked by relentless pursuit of knowledge and power. Apocrypha, the ever-shifting domain of Hermaeus Mora, served as both prison and library for Miraak. The books of Apocrypha, drenched in forbidden lore and cosmic secrets, became his obsession. These tomes were not mere artifacts. They were keys to deeper, darker knowledge that Miraak devoured with fervent zeal. In the isolation of Apocrypha, Miraak honed his abilities beyond what he had achieved before his downfall. He immersed himself in the arcane arts and the esoteric knowledge that the Daedric Prince offered. He poured himself into the mysteries of the Black Books. Through these texts, Miraak gained further insights into powerful magic, enhancing his already formidable skills. His control over dragonkind, once a mere tool of domination, evolved into a sophisticated mastery, allowing him to bend their will to his own more intricately than ever before. Miraak's influence extended even within the confines of Apocrypha. His thoughts and dreams began to seep into the waking world. The Skald of Solstheim, who had once feared him as a legend, began to notice subtle disturbances. These disturbances were the first signs of Miraak's indirect influence. His desire to return to Tamriel was matched only by his determination to remain a powerful force, even while trapped in his dimensional prison. Apocrypha, a realm where time and space twisted in improbable ways, offered him the means to subtly manipulate events beyond its borders. The inhabitants of Solstheim were not immune to Miraak's machinations. Through subtle magical influences and dreams, Miraak began to exert his will over the people of the island. He planted seeds of devotion and fear, ensuring that his presence, though unseen, was felt. His influence grew, preparing the groundwork for his eventual return. His followers, driven by dreams and whispers, began to rebuild his temple and engage in rituals intended to summon their master back from his exile. In this era of hidden plots and whispered promises, Miraak's story became one of patience and persistence. He waited, biding his time, using every resource at his disposal to prepare for the day when he could break free from the chains of Apocrypha. His legacy was one of shadows and manipulation, with every action aimed at achieving his ultimate goal, a return to power on Tamriel and the restoration of his former glory. Through arcane means, Miraak began to project his will onto the islanders. While they toiled unaware, he orchestrated a series of hidden plots. His influence manifested in the construction of shrines and structures aligned with his dark designs. These structures, under the guise of religious edifices dedicated to the Allmaker, were, in reality, channels for Miraak's power, crucial to his plan for resurgence. The rebuilding of his temple was a particularly significant development. What had once been a grand edifice to Miraak's power was razed by the dragons following his downfall. Yet Miraak's followers, in their ignorance, labored to restore it. This reconstruction was not just an act of homage, but a critical step in Miraak's scheme to harness the island's latent energies. The rebuilt temple was fortified with magical wards and protections, ensuring that Miraak's presence could influence the island even from his imprisoned state. Simultaneously, Miraak's cult began to form, capitalizing on the remnants of his old followers and recruiting new devotees. These cultists, drawn to the dark allure of Miraak's promises, began to worship him more fervently. They worked tirelessly under his subtle influence to activate the Allmaker stones scattered across Solstheim. These stones, imbued with ancient power, were key to Miraak's plan. They were meant to serve as focal points to channel the island's magical energies, thus facilitating his eventual return. Before proceeding further, I would be remiss if I did not note the other artifacts of power associated with Miraak. They are as enigmatic and formidable as the figure himself. Each of these relics not only underscores Miraak's immense power, but also reveals facets of his character and ambitions. Miraak's first blade, or sword, is perhaps the most visually striking of his artifacts. This weapon, with its primal green hue and writhing, tentacle-like extensions, embodies the chaotic and dark nature of Apocrypha itself. The sword's blade is not only a tool of destruction, but also a conduit for Miraak's will. It drains the stamina of those it strikes, extending its reach and power with each swing. The first blade's design reflects Miraak's deep bond with the Daedric realms, transforming the blade into a weapon that is as much about the mystical as it is about the martial. The final artifact of note is Miraak's staff. This staff is a manifestation of his authority and power within Apocrypha. It unleashes a torrent of writhing tentacles upon command, each one capable of staggering and poisoning those caught within their grasp. The staff's design is as sinister as its function, reinforcing Miraak's image as a being deeply intertwined with the dark and forbidden knowledge of Hermaeus Mora. Miraak's other garments include his gloves, robes, and boots, each with their own distinct magical properties. In the Fourth Era, 201 Miraak finally made his dramatic return to Tamriel. This reappearance was not a mere act of fate, but the result of meticulous planning and arcane machinations that had been years in the making. Having spent centuries imprisoned in Apocrypha, Miraak harnessed the esoteric powers of Hermaeus Mora to orchestrate his return with chilling precision. The resurgence of Miraak was not just a local phenomenon, but had broader implications. His influence extended beyond Solstheim, as his cult began to draw followers from across Tamriel. The cultists, fervently dedicated to their master, believed in Miraak's divine right to rule and his ultimate plan to overthrow the dragons and their realms. They worked in secret, disrupting the balance of power in the region and sowing discord among the various factions that sought to oppose Miraak's growing dominion. As Miraak's influence grew, so did the resistance against him. This period saw an increasing number of adventurers and heroes arriving on Solstheim, drawn by the rumors of a great evil returning to the island. Their efforts to thwart Miraak's plans and liberate the island were met with fierce opposition from his loyal followers and the dark creatures summoned to protect his interests. It should be noted that at this point, Valok has been entombed on Solstheim and did not directly face Miraak. As the echoes of Miraak's ambition reverberated across Tamriel, the last Dragonborn arrived on Solstheim, unwittingly stepping into a web of ancient treachery. The stage was set for an epic confrontation that would determine not only Miraak's fate, but also the future of the island and its people. Upon their arrival, the last Dragonborn faced immediate hostility from Miraak's cultists. These devotees, twisted by Miraak's dark promises, were determined to eliminate what they saw as a rival, a false Dragonborn. As the last Dragonborn navigated the treacherous paths of Solstheim, they unearthed clues pointing to Miraak's grand design, the reconstruction of his temple and the harnessing of the island's magical stones to facilitate his return. The journey eventually brought the Dragonborn to the Temple of Miraak, where they uncovered the Black Book, Waking Dreams. This pivotal moment transported the last Dragonborn into Apocrypha, the realm of Hermaeus Mora. Within this dimension of forbidden knowledge and shifting shadows, Miraak awaited. His presence was as commanding as it was malevolent. The confrontation was inevitable. Miraak's arrogance was palpable. He greeted the last Dragonborn with disdain, belittling his achievements and asserting his own superiority as the self-proclaimed first Dragonborn. This meeting marked the beginning of a brutal conflict that tested every facet of the Dragonborn's strength and resolve. Miraak, armed with his formidable shouts and the dark powers granted by Hermaeus Mora, was a formidable foe. His abilities included bending dragons to his will and summoning them to aid him in battle. This advantage allowed him to replenish his strength by absorbing the souls of dragons, making him a constantly shifting threat. The battle unfolded in the summits of Apocrypha, where Miraak, surrounded by his dragon minions, unleashed his full might. The last Dragonborn faced not only Miraak's direct assaults, but also the relentless pressure of his dragon allies. Despite this, the Dragonborn's determination and skill shone through. With each clash, the tide of battle ebbed and flowed, the stakes rising with every exchange of blows. Miraak's strategy was ruthless. Each time he neared defeat, he would summon a dragon, devour its soul, and use this dark magic to restore his vitality. This cycle of attack and regeneration created a grueling battle of attrition. The last Dragonborn had to anticipate Miraak's every move, countering his powerful shouts and magical attacks while striving to overcome the dragons aiding him. Miraak could not withstand the might of the true Dragonborn, and despite being imbued with the dark powers of Hermaeus Mora, still required multiple dragon souls for his very survival. As the struggle reached its climax, Miraak's arrogance proved to be his undoing. His belief in his invincibility was challenged by the resilience and resourcefulness of the last Dragonborn. The climactic battle saw the last Dragonborn overcoming Miraak's defenses and the dragon's relentless assaults. The final confrontation was marked by intense combat, where Miraak's attempts to rejuvenate himself through dragon souls were thwarted by the Dragonborn's relentless offense. The confrontation reached its zenith as Miraak, having exhausted his dragons and his own reserves, was ultimately defeated. The intervention of Hermaeus Mora was swift and brutal. Disappointed by Miraak's failure and his audacious attempt to surpass his patron, the Daedric prince struck him down, ending his reign of terror. The last Dragonborn, having vanquished Miraak, absorbed his soul, gaining the power and knowledge he had amassed. Miraak's legacy in Tamriel is both a subject of fascination and a cautionary tale. Following his defeat and banishment to Apocrypha, the island of Solstheim was left with a lasting imprint of his dark influence. Even after Miraak's fall, Solstheim bore the marks of his former power. The artifacts of Miraak, the tusked dragon priest mask, the first blade, and Miraak's staff remained potent symbols of his might. Each artifact, with its own dark history and unsettling design, continued to echo the fearsome power Miraak wielded. The mask, with its tentacled visage, seemed almost alive, a haunting relic of Miraak's time with the dragons and his subsequent betrayal. The first blade, its writhing form and seeker sinew threads, and Miraak's staff, with its tentacled assault, were not merely tools, but embodiments of Miraak's corrupted essence. In the end, Miraak's fate was sealed not by his enemies, but by the very entity that had granted him his power. Hermaeus Mora, ever the puppeteer, allowed Miraak to rise and fall according to his whims, discarding the false Dragonborn when his usefulness had been exhausted. Miraak, the would-be god, was reduced to a mere instrument in the hands of a Daedric prince, a tragic reminder of the futility of ambition when pitted against the chaotic forces of oblivion. And so, as we leave the story of Miraak behind, let us remember that even the most powerful among us can become pawns in the games of gods and demons. His tale serves as a cautionary legend, a testament to the dangers of hubris and the perilous allure of power, where the price of ambition is often far greater than one can imagine.